This is the final scheduled talk of the session, aside from Clark's closing notes, but this is the final thing that's going to have fancy slides and have any sort of coherent point. I want to welcome one of the two German members of the Solidus core team. He's come over from Berlin, and we're very happy to have him here. We're very happy with all of the work that he's been able to put in on the most recent versions of Solidus, which is going to be coming out in 1.3. He's made a great deal of changes to the VAT system, pricing system, and taxation, and is here to tell us all about them. We're really excited to have his contributions as part of this project, so please give a warm willkommen to Martin Meyerhoff.
Hi, I'm Martin. That what, right? Last year we implemented, we as in Bitspire, so I'm Martin. I'm a developer with Bitspire. We have had a big project last year, which was the subscription management website for a publishing house. And that has all kinds of different sort of VAT configurations and changing prices and lots of sort of complications that we didn't know we were getting ourselves into, and that we also didn't know that Spree did not support, right? So I had to rewrite Spree's taxation system once to make that project possible. Once we were done with it, Spree shut down. And then I was like, okay, so I need this work to be sort of there, so I'm going to rewrite it. And then the Solidus core team didn't accept it because it was too bad. And they made me rewrite it like, I don't know how many times now. I'm going to say 3 because, hey, in this talk, I want to first introduce the notion of VAT to you because I know many of you are American, you don't have it, right? So you might not understand it, which is, I think, sort of what drove the terrible, terrible implementation that was in Spree and Solidus. Then I'm going to go over sort of the 2 biggest mistakes in how to in designing Spree and Solidus's taxation system and what we're doing to fix them. This is going to be quite code-centric. I'm going to be like pointing at things, and you're like free to ask questions all the time because I know this is quite complex. Okay, but the first one is easy. So imagine there's this like company called what's what, right? Clark asked me to like do the German accent, so what's what? It's a consumption tax, and therefore relevant for e-commerce because what we do is we make people consume stuff. Here in the US and Canada, you have sales tax. Everywhere else in the world is VAT, right? Everywhere else. This is relevant for the adoption of Solidus because if you don't have sort of a way to comply with the law, your platform is just not going to be taken. So I'll give you an example company called nunuShirts. nunuShirts sells t-shirts. And I'm going to just like quickly go over like the basic VAT calculation, which is a bit different than in the US because the tax is included in the price. So nunuShirts first buys t-shirts, blank shirts, for 10 euros, including 10% of VAT. So that's not €1 of tax, it's 81 cents because that's how you calculate it. You also see here that rounding is involved. Rounding in computer science is always fun, and we shouldn't get it too wrong, right? And it's a gradual thing, like how wrong you can get it. Once nunuShirts sells a shirt for 25 bucks, the included VAT sort of rises up to 227, and the price stays 25 because the price just stays the same. The tax is already included. It's like, this is pretty easy so far, right? The way value-added tax works is you're not actually taxed for selling the thing, like in the US, where the taxation happens at checkout, but it taxes the value you as a merchant add to the product by putting it in your online store. So essentially, your markup is being taxed, right? So you've already paid the VAT on your inputs, which is 81 cents, so you're not paying that. you got from your customer 227 as included VAT in your price. So you're paying at the end of the month to your tax administration €1.46 in this particular example. Okay? And this is really good for like public administrations, by the way, because that means they can actually tax the entire supply chain and they know really well what's going on, so it's much harder to cheat the system, which is also why most of the world has it. Now, rounding again. If you sell, like if nunuShirts sells 250 t-shirts at €25 each, taxation is going to work this way. We have a total of €6,250. We divide that by 1 plus 10%, get out this approximate thing called 5,681.82. What we're not doing, we're not taking the net price of a single item, the VAT of a single item, and multiplying that by 250 because that is different and wrong.
Can you do that one more time?
Yeah. That?
No. Why are you not taking the VAT of a single item? What's the difference between the two?
One version is correct, the other one isn't. It's the law.
Okay.
It's like it's not about this being like better or like about finding the ideal thing. It's just like that's how it is,
Okay.
right? So I'm basically explaining requirements here, because if you once you have those, it's much easier to understand why the code that we have is a bit. When nunuShirts, which is based in Europe, sells to the US, because the US does not have VAT and is not in the European Union, there's no consumption tax on it. Okay? So the price changes down to the net price that does not include any VAT, which in this case would be 22.73 per item. So this means for any store that is operating globally and based in Europe, there's at least two prices that the system will have to support. A price within Europe and a price for export. Okay? At the moment Solidus only supports one really out of the box. There's another caveat, which is when you display prices, for example, on a product page, there is regulation in all European countries on how to display the VAT that is included in the price alongside the price, so you as a consumer know what you're paying to the government, right? That regulation for strict, it says you have to say including, you have to say either 10% or the actual amount of tax that is included in your price, and you have to sort of say the name of the tax in whatever language that is, right? So these two first ones, they're good. They say including 10% or including €2.73. The other two are bad because one doesn't even show any information. The other one shows the wrong price and treats VAT as if it were sales tax, which is also wrong, right? So first ones are good, two last ones are bad. I'm going to go away from the nunuShirts example because it does shirts isn't everything, and I tried making up nunuShirts now sells on Steam or something to have digital products, but no. So the question which rate applies is always dependent on the shipping address. Is this different for anyone, by the way? There's a setting in Spree that says you can tax based on the billing address, and I think it's complete bogusness. No one uses it, or shouldn't. Okay. Which rates apply actually to your prices, right? Because taxes are included in your price. If you're in the EU, your warehouse VAT rate. So you ship from Germany. Germany has 19% VAT, so all your prices will include 90% of VAT. There's a couple of exceptions though. Oh, export outside the EU, none. We've had that already. If you're selling inside the EU and make lots of revenue, then the customer's country's VAT, like the VAT of the country of the shipping address will apply. If you don't make a lot of money but you sell digital products, also the receiving country's VAT applies. Now if you've paid close attention, now you know that we're talking about 29 prices for the same product, potentially. 28 Eurozone member countries and export. Okay, any questions so far? This was like the first sort of requirement section of the talk. Yeah.
Considers a lot of, like, does that go from each country? What they consider to you making a lot of money is?
Yes, it varies from country to country. It's like between 35,000 and 100,000 euros.
A year or a month?
A year. What was that?
Not very much.
Yeah.
It's pretty fast is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Technically deal with this.
Yeah, but it's per country, so you might not like actually sell money German magazines to like Latvia. Okay.
So that 9 or 10% is different for every country in the EU, or is there like a popular percentage and then just like different ones?
It's between 13 and 30%, more or less. And yet every country has their own rate. Also, from country to country, sometimes the categories change. It's great. Oh, sorry. To give you a bit more background about, oh, sorry.
No problem. Do countries other than Germany have strict requirements about displaying the tax and the PDP? And how do you choose between them?
Well, I'm sure Austria is about the same. Britain, I think, is a bit more lax, but it's sort of, like, in my opinion, it's best to like just take the strictest approach and implement that, because that way you're like out of trouble.
Which tax rate to show on a PDP?
Well, either if your user has entered the shipping address already, then you know. Otherwise, you have to do geolocation or like some vague approximation, or you use a store and use a top-level domain to figure out like which prices to show.
Okay.
Are those rates flat within each country, or are there, within a country, do they differ?
No, they're all national rates. I think the only place that I've heard of that has changing VATs within the country is Mexico. But I've only learned that yesterday. Huh? Brazil, maybe as well. I don't know. So that's why the birds of a feather is really interesting.
Are there any other taxes, municipal level taxes?
No, we don't do that shit. I mean, huh? Yeah. Okay. So you have your variant or product. You have that variant has a tax category. Okay. Now, context. I'm talking about Solidus' architecture for doing taxation, right? So there's ways to like configure taxes in the admin. It's been made for the insanely complex American sales tax system, and can actually be tweaked for VAT quite well. Yeah, so you have a tax category. It would be something like food might be reduced, or magazines might be reduced, but t-shirts have full VAT. You probably have a similar thing wherever you're from. Then there's the tax rate thing. A tax rate has an amount, which is the rate, 19% or 10% or whatnot. It has the tax category, and it has a zone that it applies to. The zone can be countries or states if you have state-level taxation. And you have sort of like, this is very simplified, but okay, so the variant could be the shirt, tax category is clothes, you have a VAT rate for most things. The zone would be Europe, and the country would be Germany. Easy enough. If you have sales tax in Solidus, many of you will have seen this kind of sort of thing. You have you sell a shirt for 25 bucks. There's 10% of additional tax, so you have $2.50 extra, and the total the customer has to pay is $27.50, right? Line items have adjustments, and the adjustment source will be the tax rate, and it'll have a flag that says included, which is false, because it makes sense, right? It's not included in the price, it's extra, it's additional, so false. There's a reason why I'm going so much into detail about this, because soon we're gonna see the Franken adjustment. For included tax, the way this works is you have you sell this shirt for 25, there's included tax of 273 or something, some odd amount, and the total stays 25, right? The adjustment also has the tax rate as a source and has the included flag as true. Makes sense, right? Now, when people tried implementing that for the, I don't know, first, second, or third time in Spree, before I started doing this, they're like, okay, Solidus has one price per variant. I can edit that either on the product page or on the variant page, but it's definitely like only one. And I can't really change prices dynamically depending on circumstance, but the Europeans have told me that when they export, they need to change the total of the order, right? So they came up with this hack, which is like, it's kind of ingenious, but also kind of crazy. This is taxrate.hash compute amount that says if the tax rate is included in the price and we're in the default zone, or the zone has, or the zone is actually the zone that matches my tax rate, then just compute, it's great. But if it isn't, i.e. we're exporting, then multiply the tax by -1. And that, yeah? Okay, so negative taxes don't exist anywhere in the world. So this -1 actually just carries additional meaning, and it took me months to find out like what that additional meaning is. And sort of that hack sort of percolates throughout the code base. It's great. Because this is a little further up in the same file. This is Solidus 1.1. So first we compute, like this is creating the adjustment on the line item. So first we compute the amount, then we do nothing if the amount is 0 because no taxes, no adjustment, great. And then we have this variable called included. That is, okay, like the tax rate that I'm calling this on has the VAT flag. And I'm inside the default zone, like the same question that we asked before, which is actually quite expensive and is now run twice. And then we're like, okay, if the amount is smaller than 0, so if we have been in that other branch that I just showed you, then we just add refund to the name of that thing. Right? This is also funny because label is defined inside an if block and used here, and it doesn't name error ever because Ruby is great. Ruby is wonderful. And included, right, gets passed in here. So now, if we're exporting from a VAT country, we have an additional adjustment from a VAT rate that's included in price, whose amount is negative, and yeah, it's just really weird. But what it does, because additional adjustment get actually added to your order, and it's negative, it refunds the tax that you had originally paid. So now, like this means our taxation system and our pricing system are entwined in a very, very strange way. And it percolates throughout the code base.
Oh boy.
Yeah?
So how does it surface back to the customer? You're an EU retailer sending to an American, and then the net price of the item goes down because of the VAT being taken out. How does it show to them, and then an invoice? So if they do a return, they know how much they're supposed to be getting.
You have an adjustment on your invoice that says, I'm refunding you German tax.
The total, but not per item, right? So if I've ordered 5 items and I've taken out the VAT for all of those 5, I'm just seeing a lump sum refund.
It depends whether it's the same tax category, because or the same tax rate. That's the source of them. Because otherwise, like Spree and Solidus group them by name, I think. So if the name of all adjustments is the same, that gets summed up. if it's different things, you might get like 10 lines of refund of like this VAT and that VAT and this VAT. It's rather strange. Okay, so this, does anyone know which model this is from?
Or variant?
No? It's shipping rate. So, no, yeah, shipping rate. So this is an estimation of what shipping might cost. And there's like 4 levels of ifs here. And then a string gets created. This is, by the way, an I18N total super sin. Like, do not ever do this kind of stuff in like model code. And then there's also, again, here, okay, if the tax amount is bigger than 0, else display this tax amount by -1. So now it's positive again. Right? This is also particularly funny because like shipping has zones anyways, so we can actually distinguish whether we're sending to the US or not. So that shouldn't apply for like exporting, and there's just no need to even like do this. But hey, sad German. So the solution of that that we've is we store an additional thing on prices that says where that price applies, somehow find out where the customer is from or what the default is or whatnot, and then just show that price and use that price, and do not start refunding stuff that we never actually had the right to incur, right? That refund does not exist, never did. So we unlink pricing from taxation. We stop having Franken adjustments. Prices know where they apply, and we're a lot faster. Because all that finding tax rates via zones during checkout, whenever you add something, is a couple of really slow queries. I'm going to like get into some of that in the next part of the talk. That's more about efficiency and sort of funny design stuff that happens when you're like, there's this zone concept. Yeah, so it's faster, and adding that yielded an API for customizing prices within core, right? So before, for customizing price, we've had spree price books and spree price lists, which added additional active record models and had some really complex code. And here we just have sort of an example implementation for like a more flexible pricer that can be like inherited from, extended, and that will just work pretty well, I think. Okay, so the next part is the terrible default zone. Who's seen the default zone? Great. So there's a validation for, you have to have a zone that has a Boolean that says default tax. You can't add any VAT rates if that zone isn't there. It means many things. It means the zone whose taxes are assumed to be inside all prices. It also means the tax zone of an order that has no address yet, of a cart. Hopefully, it's a zone that has taxes and not a shipping zone, right? Because if it has shipping methods, it just doesn't work. It falls apart. So now, imagine this zone has many members, it has many countries. An order has a zone with many members. Tax rate has a zone with many members. And we have many tax rates. And now we try to do a match. We try to find out like which tax rates apply to this particular order. And we have to like iterate over all the members of all the tax rates and see whether the members of my order's default zone are all inside any of the tax rates zones. Just like, I see you all just fell asleep because this is complex even for a computer, and it takes a long time. Right? So this is the previous code that did this. So it defines an instance variable on the order that it then will have to remove whenever the order is reloaded because the address might have changed, right? This is part of the like 900 line order model we have. It runs zone.match, which I'm going to get to in a second. And if that returns nothing, it takes the default tax zone. And by that, it will sort of do that dance that I just like showed you. Yeah, and it's just crazy. This is zone.match. And it's beautiful. I've reformatted a bit so that it fits on a slide. Like this is actually a line that goes about here. So this loads all zones with all zone members, orders them somehow, matches the address, great. References the zones and then looks for the smallest one. This means, oh, it's ugly code. I'm seeing some of you like, yeah, smallest because the zone member count is used in the order, and because state is the first thing in this array. Right? So if you have a smaller shipping zone that applies to your order, then the tax zone that's around it, then the shipping zone will be the order's default, the order's tax zone, and your taxation will not work. Bad. Sad German. So a big sort of aim when we develop or when we refactor stuff in Solidus core is that we don't break backwards compatibility. This improves the quality of what we do because it just like gets lots of code reviews and all good. Also, we want to like be as close to the original implementation as possible. So I was thinking, okay, wait. This order.tax zone does not make any sense. We have a tax address already. We can match zones to addresses. It should also be much easier because an address only has one country and one state. And we can actually do a direct join via tax rates on zones and be done with it, right? This is what we did. So we had to add another model, another small sort of Poro model that just has a country ID and a state ID and can be fed into that query just like an address. And then just write this like tiny scope called for address and tax rate that joins on zones and merges a query of the spree zone for this address. And we get all the tax rates applied to this order without the danger of accidentally hitting a shipping zone. Much simpler. So there's many more things that I've been doing. If you are interested, you can look over my GitHub pull request log. Last time I checked, it's been like 80 or so pull requests. Some of them are closed and not merged. Other ones are merged. I'm still in the process of implementing the pricing by country because that poses a couple of challenges, both in terms of not destroying data for existing shops, because of course you have to migrate that sort of, they have prices, and if I take away default zone and the buy -1 hack, I'll have to calculate new prices for export and do that in a way that doesn't destroy data, because losing data in e-commerce is bad. Yeah, but many more things that have been happened that I don't have the time and don't want to tax you with. Like, we now have persisted shipping rates. We have separated business and taxation logic, which is something you're going to love. It's better I18N. Much of like the shipping rate tax thing you just saw makes a lot of assumption about how to display things in the front end that don't necessarily hold true for all countries, like using commas as the decimal separator, or no, using full, yeah, whatever. So it's better I18N, and there's been a number of sort of drive-by refactorings where I'm like, wait a second, the Americans use pre-tax amount for amount on returns, I'm just going to like fix that, because it's not the pre-tax amount for us. For us, it's actually just the amount. That makes us happy campers. So what I'd like to do sort of medium term, right? Short term, I just want to finish fixing what I've started. Medium term, I'd like to actually extract taxation from core, or have like a null taxation that doesn't do much, but a good interface where services like Avalara or TaxCloud can hook into and don't query their APIs twice for every line item in every order, every time you call order.next. So that'd be great, but that's sort of on the medium-term roadmap. I hear these calls are quite expensive, no? Yeah, I'm Martin. I work with Bitspire. We do internationalization and maintenance and just general sort of Spree and Solidus consulting. Come to my workshop. It's over there, I think. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
I do kind of like not on taxation. You seem to be, you have a handle on taking a massive amount of workload on like this through open source. Like, how are you managing your life?
So A, I don't have a family, which helps. B, I do have a girlfriend who's also a hacker, which also helps. And I like complicated things. Also, partly this is kind of my life, no? You probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Will this land in 1.3?
Clark, will this land in 1.3?
It is 1.3. We hoped to have all of this stuff done, less than 2 months ago? But it just goes through an infinity review process. No one would ever imagine the announcement being smart, rewrite everything, and then maybe switch it back to what it was. It's been a really crazy process.
Yeah.
So the price books seem like a great idea. Turned into a total disaster. But there's a lot of retailers that have, say, licensing requirements, like in Servdome, where price books originated. We had a problem where like Kelly Slater could sell a Serv board in the UK. In France or Germany, it would have to be different because there's different licensing deals, because Kelly Slater made different licensing arrangements with different companies. And so Pixel couldn't sell that same Serv board at the same price. So that was what price books was created to solve. I was just wondering what your thinking is for Solidus, and how we can keep that complexity for the people who need it, and very simplify that complexity of prices.
So if I understand your question correctly, you're saying there's price books that does this. Why are you rewriting it?
You're right. Over time, it just got more and more complicated. Very, very complex. So, what is your vision for creating flexible pricing and doing that in an extensible way so that we need it?
Okay. So the way I haven't shown this on the slides because it's I wanted to limit sort of the amount of sort of complicated code slides I like impact on you. The way the pricer interface works is you have a variant pricer class that has one method called price_for, takes a pricing options object and has a pricing options class that can be instantiated from a view context, from a line item, or from a price, and they will always yield the correct price depending on columns on the price, basically. So you have a very sort of denormalized price table.
Very easy to say implement the pricing like that, because the red one is the pricing the blue one. It's free doesn't handle it very well right now. It is
Yeah. Okay, cool. More questions? Okay, thanks for all the attention. And anyone who's also a great nerd on taxes, come over to the boardroom.